and welcome back to the Better Your Life channel, where we discuss all things related to anxiety and our mental well-being. Today we're going to look at understanding how the anxious brain works and what's really going on in our minds when we're feeling anxious. So anxiety is something many of us experience, and it's perfectly normal to feel worried or stressed at times. However, living with anxiety can feel overwhelming and exhausting, and understanding what's happening in our brain is a helpful step towards taking back control. Now, anxiety isn't just in your head, it's real. There's a biological response involving three parts of our brain. And knowing how our brain processes anxiety can help us feel a little less helpless and a little bit more empowered and in control. It helps us to take steps towards calmness. Our brains evolved when the world was very different, when we were cave-dwelling nomadic hunter-gatherers living in tribal communities more than 200,000 years ago. Now, back then, we had to be able to survive saber-toothed tigers and bears if the human species was going to continue. Now, our society and technology have evolved very quickly, thankfully. However, much more quicker than the evolution of our bodies and our brains. So sometimes our brains can't keep up with what's going on, and we respond to everyday stress and anxiety as if we are still being chased by a tiger. So what's really going on when we feel anxious? Now, anxiety is our brain's smoke alarm. While this response is designed to protect us from danger, it can sometimes become overactive, making everyday situations feel overwhelming. There are three main parts of our brain involved in anxiety. So we have our brain stem, also known as our reptilian brain or survival brain, and this is triggered by feelings of fear, stress, anxiety, anger, or upset. It is constantly alert and scanning for threats, and is designed to help keep us safe and stop us from taking dangerous risks. Then we have our limbic system, which includes our hippocampus and our amygdala. This is also known as our emotional brain. Now, the amygdala acts as our emotional smoke alarm, and the hippocampus is our memory processor, and it provides context based on our past experiences. Now, this part of our brain is responsible for regulating our emotions and behavioural responses. Our prefrontal cortex, also known as our executive brain or thinking brain, sometimes rational brain or smart brain, this is the brain's voice of reason. This is where logic is. Our prefrontal cortex is responsible for things like planning, decision-making, problem-solving, self-control, and following through with some of our goals. Now, when these areas of our brain don't work well together, don't communicate harmoniously, it can create what's commonly known as the anxious brain. Now, if you're struggling with anxiety, I invite you to check out the free resources over in the description when you've finished watching this video. And if you're not sure where to start, I suggest the Circle of Control and Influence, as this will help you take back control of your situation, and it offers a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. So let's break this down a little bit further. The amygdala is an almond-shaped cluster of neurons buried deep within our brain. It is the brain's fear centre, and it plays a key role in detecting and responding to threats. When our brain perceives something is dangerous, whether it's a real threat like an approaching car, or maybe it's a perceived threat like giving a presentation or walking into a room, the amygdala sends an urgent signal to the rest of our brain and body to prepare us for action. Now, this activates the fight, flight and freeze response, which is the survival mechanism designed to protect us from tigers. And this is what's kept us alive as a species. Now, when we are anxious, the amygdala is often overactive and hypervigilant, sounding the alarm all too frequently or too intensely. This is why even everyday situations such as speaking in public in front of others, it can feel overwhelming and frightening. Now, the amygdala also triggers physical symptoms like a increased heart rate, rapid breathing, sweating, and muscle tension. It reacts instinctively before our rational brain can assess whether the threat is real or not. Now, over time, repeated stress and anxiety can make our amygdala more sensitive, and anxiety can spiral out of control. So let's look at the prefrontal cortex. This is located at the front of our brain, and this is like the CEO of our mind. It's responsible for higher order functions such as problem solving, decision making, and self-regulation. In the context of anxiety, the prefrontal cortex acts as a counterbalance to the amygdala. However, it's not as fast as our instinctive reptilian brain. When we sense a potential threat, the prefrontal cortex assesses the situation using logic instead of instinct. It decides whether the amygdala's smoke alarm is justified in this instance, and if it believes it's not justified, it works to calm our bodies down again. However, during periods of high anxiety or chronic stress, the prefrontal cortex can become less effective. This weakens our ability to think rationally, making it harder to calm our fears or approach situations with a clear mind. And then you have the hippocampus. The hippocampus is located near the amygdala. It's vital for processing and storing memories. Now, it helps us to make sense of our experiences, and it provides a context for them. So, for example, if we had a negative experience with public speaking, the hippocampus might store that memory and associate similar situations with danger, because that's how you felt when you had the memory before. Now, in the anxious brain, the hippocampus can become less effective at distinguishing between real and perceived threats. This is why safe situations like meeting new people can feel just as threatening as genuinely dangerous situations. Now, over time, chronic anxiety can make it harder to accurately process memories and context, and this can create a feedback loop and strengthen neural pathways where the brain becomes more prone to anxiety responses. Now, constant anxiety can also distort our ability to accurately assess threats, leading to overreactions. However, we can develop new neural pathways by engaging in activities that force our brain to make new connections. We can strengthen the hippocampus through relaxation techniques, facing our fears, exposure therapy, and working with an anxiety therapist. Now, before we continue, you may be wondering, who am I and how am I qualified to give you this advice? Well, my name's Jennifer Roblin and I am an anxiety specialist and therapist. And I have helped thousands of people learn the tools and strategies to manage anxiety and uncover the root cause that is unique to them. I am the founder of Better Your Life, and my team and I are passionate about helping people who are currently struggling with anxiety, stress, or burnout. Now, please do go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button so that you're kept up to date every time we release a new video. You also get links to all the free resources that are over in the description. So whilst these parts of the brain have their own roles, they work closely together. In simple terms, the amygdala unconsciously detects a potential threat. The hippocampus provides context to determine if it's safe based on past experience, and the prefrontal cortex makes the final logical decision. However, when anxiety takes over and has a hold on you, this system can spiral out of control. The amygdala overrides logical thinking with intense fear signals, and our prefrontal cortex struggles to intervene and regulate our response. Now, the hippocampus will then misinterpret the situation, adding even more fuel to the anxiety fire. Now, understanding how these areas interact helps us recognise why anxiety feels so overwhelming and what steps we can take to break the cycle. So, I had my first panic attack at the age of 11 when I was asked to read a passage from a book at school. I had to stand at the front of the class, facing everyone. All eyes were on me as I fumbled with my words. The class started to laugh and the teacher lost all control and handled the situation really badly, to be fair. Now, my legs turned to jelly as my body prepared for me to run away from the tiger. My face was bright red due to increased blood flow. I was sweating and shaking as my body tried to cool me down. Now, my logical brain shut down as we don't need to do algebra when we think there is a tiger in front of us. My breathing quickened until I thought I couldn't breathe, and my heart rate quickened and I thought I was going to die. I did not know back then that these are all symptoms of anxiety. I ran out of the classroom in tears and I had my first panic attack. Now, as I said, I was 11 when this happened. However, I didn't stand up in front of a room for the next 40 years because I was petrified. I would prefer to leave a job than be forced to present in front of anyone. It is madness logically, and because I avoided speaking in public at all costs, I was constantly reinforcing to myself that it was something really dangerous to do. But there is good news. The brain is incredibly adaptable thanks to a phenomenon called neuroplasticity. Now, this means that we can retrain our brains to respond to stress and anxiety in healthier ways. Activities such as anxiety therapy, mindfulness, and physical exercise can all help strengthen connections between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, whilst also supporting the hippocampus. Now, I finally faced my fears in my 50s. My business was going really well and I wanted to be able to help more and more people, especially children, as it is my belief that nobody needs to struggle with anxiety. Knowing I could help more children by going into schools, it meant that it was more important to me to help the children than it was to worry about my fear. So I enrolled on a public speaking course. Now, it wasn't easy the first time, but my why was huge. The first school I actually spoke at was my old school and the school that my daughter was attending at the time. So I knew a lot of her friends there. There were a lot of familiar faces. There were 300 children in that room. I felt my hands start to sweat as I walked past the very same classroom where the teacher had lost all control 40 years before. When I started my speech, my voice wobbled a bit. I could feel my heart beating faster. But what I wanted to say was more important than how I was feeling. I have now lost count of how many talks I have done at schools and universities and corporate companies. I've won several awards for speaking, and I have even appeared on a show for ITV where I taught a celebrity to overcome her fear and imposter syndrome of speaking in public, and I was able to give her some top tips. So I absolutely love being able to teach so many children how they can overcome anxiety, and I could only do this by facing my fear. I just wish I had done it sooner. Now, you can rewire your anxious brain by seeking therapy. An anxiety therapist will help you to identify the root cause of your anxiety, will challenge your irrational fears and create healthier thought patterns and new neural pathways that will support you instead of hindering you. An anxiety specialist can also provide alternative coping strategies and techniques to overcome it. Now, mindfulness meditation is a great thing to do as well. It enhances the prefrontal cortex's ability to regulate emotional response. And I have a video on mindfulness on this channel. Regular exercise promotes the growth of new neural connections, particularly in the hippocampus, and it releases endorphins, which is one of our feel-good hormones. Deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the opposite to the fight and flight and freeze response. We call it the rest and digest response. And this then calms down the amygdala and sends messages to our body that we are safe. Journaling also helps because it gets the thoughts out of your head and onto paper. This also helps you to recognise triggers and learn ways to better control your thoughts and feelings. Now, you can then reflect on what you say to a friend who is struggling with something similar, as this would provide the opportunity to practice more positive self-talk. Now, over in the description, I've got a free workbook. It's called Journaling Questions to Ask Yourself to Reduce Anxiety, and you're welcome to go and download it. Now, remember, you don't have to face this alone. Help is available. You can better your life and overcome your anxious thoughts and behaviours one step at a time. Taking care of our mental well-being is an essential part of our overall well-being. And if left unresolved, anxiety can spiral out of control and have a significant impact on relationships, work, school and family life. Now, it is my belief that nobody needs to struggle with anxiety. We just need the strategies and techniques to overcome it. So if you want to take the next step to have a happier life, where your fears no longer hold you back, click on the link below or over in the description and book a free, no obligation consultation call. Please also have a look at the free resources, as while these workbooks cannot eliminate anxiety or get to the root cause, they do go a long way to aiding you on your journey. And please share your top tips and ask us any questions in the comments, as we'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more insights, and share with anyone else you believe might be struggling with anxiety. You're not alone. Until next time, thank you for watching, and bye for now.